If you've watched even just more than one of my videos, you've probably seen me bounce this steel ball off of a shoe or insole. And a lot of you actually put real stock in that number. And for good reason, because the largest shoe companies in the world do the exact same test on their shoes and foams before they go to market to determine their bounce, energy return, shock absorption. But based on the comments I've been getting recently, I think there are some significant misconceptions out there about what that number actually means, what a bouncier shoe is actually doing to your body, and whether a higher or lower number on that test is actually better. The answers might surprise you, even if you have a lot of experience with shoes. So what does that bounce height test actually measure? That test shows a percentage of energy return. A shoe with more elastic or springy foam isn't going to give you more energy or more bounce. At most, it can retain a larger percent of the energy or force that you are putting into the ground versus being shoeless or being in a brick of a shoe. If energy return is your thing, you are basically trying to get as close to 100% energy as possible, but we know that can't happen because of the laws of thermodynamics. Some of that energy you put into the shoe is going to get dissipated as heat, some is going to actually deform the shoe. A lot of people assume that foam or air or a plate is going to give something back to you. What it's really trying to do is harvest more of what you give it. And in a shoe's plate's case, like if it's a plated shoe, a carbon fiber plate, plastic plate, whatever, a shank, all it's doing is redirecting energy, not creating it. Remember, all these are passive materials. There's no source of energy in any of them. The only source of energy when you are walking, running, playing sports, whatever, is you. So when you see this bounce height test, all you are seeing is, all it's showing is how good or bad a shoe is at dissipating shock, which, the better it is at dissipating shock, the lower the ball is bouncing, which actually some people, really actually a lot of people want because it's easier on certain parts of your body, which I'll get to that specifically in a minute. And it's usually more stable, especially for side-to-side sports, or for people with higher torsion in their leg, or people with rotational deformities, hypermobility, like being duck-footed or being pigeon-toed. The problem you see with that bounce height test is that sometimes the ball will bounce off of a stiffer foam higher than a softer or more cookie dough type foam. So it looks like that stiffer foam is doing something akin to like Nike Air, whereas Nike Air is able to deform and rebound fluidly and with a lot of efficiency. Some of these stiff, brick-like foams aren't deforming anything, it's just sending shock up your kinetic chain. So the same number on the scale can mean two different things for different foams. You have to look at the actual makeup of the foam as well as just the number you see in that tube. For example, a premium eTPU like, let's say, Jet Boost or Light Boost is so strong, it's light, elastic, that it can deform, maintain stability, and return a decent percentage of the energy that you put into them. The key to these more premium foams is their ability to deform and rebound, not just resist like more of like a brick-like foam. And because I get a ton of questions on the merits of that test itself, specifically what I am bouncing and why, now I use a steel ball bearing dropped from the same height every single time. The ball bearing is hard, dense, and essentially inelastic, meaning it's not contributing any of its own energy return to the result. It's as close to a neutral object as you can get, for this kind of test. Now, is this a perfect simulation of a human foot striking the ground? No. A human foot is a complex biological spring with its own mechanics that no ball bearing could ever replicate, and neither could a real foot because all of our feet are different or would act differently. The point of the test is consistency. Same object, same weight, same height, same drop every single time. What changes is the shoe underneath of it. That consistency is what makes the comparison between shoes any bit meaningful, even for, like I said, some of the biggest companies in the world. Even the absolute number itself is not a perfect biomechanical measurement though. When you think of it, I think of it like as a ruler. The ruler is not going to tell you everything you need to know, but it tells you something consistent and comparable every time you use it. Now, depending on what you want out of a shoe, you will want to see a very different number on that test. And how to figure out what number you want to see for your own needs will depend on, the next part of this video. So speaking of bounce, is bounce really the thing you need, or is it compliance of the foam or the foam's ability to deform? The only variables in foam that have actually been found to do anything in the research in terms of running economy, which is what is usually tested when foams or shoes are tested in people in the research, is compliance, which is how much deformity or shock absorption a foam allows, and overall weight of the shoe. Increased compliance to a point and lower overall shoe weight have been really the only variables in the research that have been shown to do anything meaningful or significant for people in terms of running economy. Increasing the stack height of a shoe has not been shown to do anything, so when you see more foam on these teardowns, that doesn't mean the shoe is that much bouncier or compliant, and increasing the shoe foam's resilience or bounce also hasn't been shown to do anything significant for running economy. Now, there has been a study done that did find a 0.6% increase in running economy when increasing the stack, but that was in advanced or elite runners, and there were potentially a lot of other variables at play for just a 0.6% increase, so I don't really give that finding as much weight as the others, especially for this video. Now, like I said previously, a lot of people don't want their shoes to have higher energy return potential because they think that more energy return is going to mean more shock up their body and up their entire kinetic chain. But this is actually not accurate. High rebound shoes actually do not increase stress throughout your kinetic chain. High rebound shoes actually take stress off of the ankle and the Achilles tendon, but it does load your navicular, which is the keystone bone of your arch and midfoot, and the knee more. So in reality, it's kind of a mixed bag. The one thing I'll say is that higher rebound foams mostly are not as stable as more absorptive foams. So in terms of things like peroneal tendonitis, chronic ankle sprainers, people with instability, hypermobility, lax ligaments, those kind of things, you may want to think about a more dense absorptive foam versus bouncier foams. For other people though, depending on what you want, depending on where you care about that force loading in your body, you're gonna want something different. Then there's the question of durability of a bouncier foam, because roughly halfway through a typical shoe's life, it seems like most foams start meeting in the middle. A really interesting study, which I actually think I've quoted this thing before in some other videos, has been shown that after 450 kilometers of use, PEBA, which is supposed to be like one of the highest energy returning foams, and EVA, which is the most basic and workhorse of all foams, had the same running economy. Before that, PEBA had lower energy cost and better economy, but at that 450 mark, EVA catches up, and more importantly, EVA stayed consistent throughout its life cycle. So if you're looking for a consistent performance, the cheaper, simpler product, like a Phylon, like a Fresh Foam, like any one of just basic shoes with EVA, might be better for you. Also to that end, there is sufficient evidence out there that shows that different modern day foams and shoes do absolutely nothing compared to one another. It's just all perceived. In fact, a really well-designed study found that more advanced foams, more advanced shoes, only created the feelings of comfort and enjoyment. Whereas physiologically, while they're being tested, there were no significant differences when using one shoe versus another. It was all just that people liked wearing the more advanced shoes. They felt better. So the biggest boost you are getting from some of these shoes is a mental one, which, to be fair, can be just as significant as anything else. So in terms of what to look for in a shoe when it comes to the numbers on the bounce height test, if you are somebody with, let's say, instability, knee pain, hip, back pain, you may want to look more in that 30 to 35 centimeter return range. And in terms of a shank, bottom-loaded plates is a really good design for this, just a little more stable. Now, orthotics and insoles are a different story. You can get very absorptive foams that get close to single digits on that test. That's how absorptive they are. But also with these orthotics, the foam in them is a little bit heavier because right now, at least in terms of foam technology, we're getting better at this. But to get the super absorptive foams that the ball bearing just dies on, right? You have to have a little bit of a heavier foam. So those are better suited for insoles. In terms of shoes, if you've got an entire shoe bed of this, it can just get really heavy and kind of bog you down. So in terms of that shock absorption, in a shoe, you want kind of like that moderate, like I said, 30 to 35. And then if you want more, do it with your insole, because these actually have the profile of foam to get the good shock absorption without making the shoe weigh a ton or making the shoe into a brick. But if you like the feeling of bounce and elasticity, which there's nothing wrong with that, a lot of people do, then look for a shoe that gets about 40 to 45 centimeters on that test. A top-loaded shank or a sandwich shank will really feel best in this situation. If you can get an orthotic with some spring in its arch, that'll also give you the sensation and performance you're really looking for. Yes, you can get shoes with really long plates or full carbon fiber inserts, but there are big issues with those that can really negate any benefit they have. And if you want to find out what those issues are and if carbon fiber inserts are right for you, check out this video right here. And if you want to see which shoe foam is best for you, I cut open literally every single shoe foam on the market right now and tested all of them head to head. You want to check out this video right here to see which one is best for you. I'll see you in the next video.